In the shadows of ancient libraries, hidden beneath layers of dust and secrecy, lies a prophecy so powerful that it has been deliberately concealed from billions of people. What you're about to discover will change everything you thought you knew about the end times. For over 2,000 years, religious authorities have guarded a secret, a prophecy written in coded language, scattered across multiple texts, speaking of events that align with our world today in ways that are impossible to ignore. But why has this remained hidden? And more importantly, what does it reveal about what's coming? The story begins in the year 95 AD, on a barren island in the Aegean Sea. A man sits alone in a cave, his hands trembling as visions flood his mind. This man is John of Patmos, and what he's experiencing will become the Book of Revelation. But what most people don't know is that Revelation isn't the only apocalyptic text. There were others, many others, and they were intentionally removed. John's visions were terrifying. He saw beasts rising from the sea, stars falling from heaven, and a final battle between good and evil. The imagery was so vivid, so disturbing, that early church leaders debated whether it should even be included in the Bible. Some argued it was too dangerous, too easy to misinterpret. Yet it made it through. But others didn't. In the 4th century, a crucial meeting took place. Religious leaders gathered to decide which books would be considered sacred scripture and which would be banned. This wasn't just about theology. It was about control, about power, about determining what billions of future believers would and wouldn't know about the end of the world. Among the rejected texts was the Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish work that predated most of the Bible. Enoch described fallen angels, Nephilim, and a coming judgment in extraordinary detail. It was quoted in the New Testament itself, yet it was removed. Why? Because it revealed too much about the spiritual warfare happening beyond human sight, and about timelines that didn't fit the approved narrative. Another forbidden text was the Apocalypse of Peter, which described the afterlife and final judgment with graphic precision. Early Christians revered it, reading it alongside the Gospels. But when the official canon was formed, it was cast out. The descriptions were considered too explicit, the visions too unsettling for ordinary believers. Then there's the Book of Jubilees, sometimes called Little Genesis. It retold the creation story, but included prophecies about world ages, cosmic cycles, and the ultimate restoration of paradise. It divided history into Jubilee periods, 49-year cycles, and predicted exactly when the end would come. This level of specificity made religious authorities uncomfortable. If people knew the timeline, they might question, might prepare differently, might challenge authority. What's remarkable is that these texts don't contradict Revelation. They complement it. They fill in the gaps. When you read them together, a more complete picture emerges, a picture that's been deliberately fragmented to keep the full truth out of reach. Let's examine what these combined prophecies actually say. First, they speak of a time when knowledge will increase exponentially. The Book of Daniel mentions this explicitly, stating that in the end times, people will travel rapidly to and fro, and knowledge will increase. We're living in that reality now. Information doubles every few years. Technology advances at unprecedented speed. Second, the prophecies describe unusual celestial events, blood moons, solar eclipses occurring in specific patterns, stars falling from the sky. In recent decades, astronomers have documented rare lunar Tishrid sequences, 4 consecutive blood moons falling on Jewish feast days, an occurrence that has only happened a handful of times in 2,000 years. Third, there's the reunification of Israel. Multiple prophets, including Ezekiel and Isaiah, predicted that the Jewish people would return to their homeland, after being scattered across nations. This seemed impossible for centuries, yet in 1948, against all odds, Israel was re-established as a nation. The prophecies specifically stated this would happen in the generation before the end. But here's where it gets unsettling. The forbidden texts add another layer. They speak of a period called the revealing, when hidden knowledge would suddenly become accessible to everyone. Ancient secrets, lost technologies, spiritual truths long suppressed. We're seeing this now. Dead Sea Scrolls discovered, Nag Hammadi Library unearthed, digital technology making ancient manuscripts available to anyone with internet access. The Book of Enoch describes 70 generations from the time of Enoch to the final judgment. Scholars have calculated this timeline, and depending on how you count a generation, we're either in the 69th or 70th generation right now, the final one. There's also the prophecy of the falling away, mentioned in 2 Thessalonians, a great apostasy, a massive abandonment of faith before the end. Religious attendance is plummeting across the Western world. Institutions that stood for millennia are crumbling. Ancient moral frameworks are being dismantled, exactly as predicted. Now, the most controversial part, several suppressed texts speak of a specific astronomical alignment that would signal the final countdown. Not just any alignment, but a configuration involving Jupiter, Venus, and Regulus, the king star. This exact alignment occurred in 2017, mirroring the pattern described in Revelation chapter 12. The woman clothed with the sun, with the moon at her feet, and a crown of 12 stars. Religious scholars who pointed this out were dismissed as conspiracy theorists. But the mathematics don't lie. The alignment happened exactly as written, down to the specific constellation positions. It was the first time in 7,000 years that such a configuration appeared in the sky. So why don't they want you to know this? Because knowledge is power, and prophecy creates urgency. If people truly believed we're in the final generation, everything would change. Economic systems built on long-term debt would collapse. Political power structures would be questioned. People would live differently, prioritize differently, believe differently. The early church fathers understood this. They knew that certain prophecies, if widely known, would destabilize the social order they were trying to build. So they made a choice: preserve some texts, suppress others, give people enough to maintain faith, but not enough to provoke panic or revolution. But there's something even the suppressors didn't fully understand. The prophecy contains a failsafe. Multiple texts state that in the end times, the sealed knowledge would be unsealed, that what was hidden would be revealed. That's happening now, not through official channels, but through archaeology, through digital archives, through independent researchers piecing together fragments that were never meant to be connected. Let's talk about the actual timeline these combined prophecies suggest. Daniel speaks of a period of 70 weeks, interpreted as 70 weeks of years, or 490 years. The countdown began with the decree to rebuild Jerusalem. Various starting points have been proposed, but when you align them with the suppressed texts, a pattern emerges suggesting we're in the final week, the last 7-year period. The Book of Jubilees adds precision, describing the world's history as 50 Jubilee cycles. By their calculation, we're at the end of the 50th cycle. The Great Reset, the cosmic restoration, everything returning to its original state before corruption entered the world. Revelation itself speaks of 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and 7 bowls of wrath, a sequence of judgments unfolding in specific order. Many scholars believe we're currently between the 6th and 7th seal, the calm before the final storm. A brief pause, where everything seems almost normal, but the pressure is building beneath the surface. What makes this truly frightening is how specific these prophecies are. They don't just say wars and rumors of wars, which could apply to any era. They describe a one-world government, a universal currency system, technology that allows a mark to be placed on people for buying and selling. These weren't possible until our generation. But now they're not just possible, they're being actively developed. The suppressed texts add that before the final events, there would be a great deception, a lie so convincing that even the faithful would struggle to resist it, something that appears as light but is actually darkness, a counterfeit spirituality that mimics the real thing so perfectly that distinguishing between them requires supernatural discernment. We're also told about the role of Babylon in the end times, not literal ancient Babylon, but a symbolic system of economic and spiritual corruption that dominates the world. Revelation describes it as a great city that rules over the kings of the earth, dressed in purple and scarlet, glittering with wealth. The parallels to modern financial centers and global power structures are striking. Here's what they really don't want you to know. The prophecy isn't just about doom. It's about hope, about a complete transformation of reality, about evil being permanently defeated and a new world emerging where death, pain, and suffering no longer exist. But to get there, the old world must first be dismantled. The forbidden texts emphasize that not everyone experiences the end times the same way. There are those who will be protected, sheltered during the worst of it. Others will go through the tribulation, but emerge refined, purified, and some will be deceived, choosing the counterfeit over the authentic. What determines which group you're in? According to these prophecies, it's not about religious performance or perfect theology. It's about the heart, about genuine love for truth, even when that truth is uncomfortable. About refusing to be deceived, even when the deception is convenient. The timeline these texts suggest is sobering. If we're truly in the final generation, as the signs indicate, we're talking about events that could unfold within decades, possibly less, not centuries, not some distant future, within the lifetime of people alive today. This explains the urgency in suppressing these prophecies. If this knowledge became mainstream, if billions of people suddenly realized we're potentially in the final countdown, the world would change overnight. Markets would panic. Governments would lose control. People would seek spiritual answers outside traditional institutions. But suppression has never fully worked. Throughout history, remnants of these prophecies have survived. In monastic libraries, in desert caves, in oral traditions passed down through generations, and now, in the digital age, they're spreading faster than ever. The astronomical signs continue. In 2024, another rare celestial alignment occurred. Solar eclipses crossed America in an X pattern over 7 years, intersecting at a point called Little Egypt. The mathematical probability of this happening by chance is virtually zero. Yet mainstream media barely mentioned it. Weather patterns are intensifying. Earthquakes in unexpected places. Volcanic activity increasing, exactly as predicted. Not gradual climate change, but sudden catastrophic events that defy natural explanation. The forbidden texts called this birth pangs, contractions increasing in frequency and intensity before the final delivery. Then there's the technology factor. Artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, transhumanism, the merging of human and machine. These weren't in the original biblical texts because the language didn't exist to describe them. But the suppressed books spoke of forbidden knowledge returning, of humans attempting to become gods, of the boundaries between creation being violated. The prophecy warns of a figure who will emerge during this chaos, someone with answers, someone who brings order from disorder, someone who performs signs and wonders that convince the world he's a savior. But according to the texts, this figure is the ultimate deception, the Antichrist, not a demon with horns, but a charismatic leader who appears righteous. What's terrifying is how ready the world is for such a figure right now. People are desperate for solutions to global problems, economic instability, political division, environmental crisis, pandemic threats. Someone who could address all of this would be embraced immediately. The infrastructure for a one-world system is already in place. It just needs the right person to activate it. The suppressed prophecies reveal something else critical. There are two competing timelines. One leads to permanent enslavement under a corrupt system. The other leads to liberation and transformation. Humanity stands at a crossroads, and the choice isn't made collectively, it's made individually. Every person must choose which timeline they align with. This is why the prophecy was hidden, because it places responsibility on each person. It removes the comfort of passivity. You can't just go along with the crowd. You have to actively choose, even when that choice comes with a cost. The Book of Enoch describes the final judgment as a separation, not between religious and non-religious, but between those who loved truth and those who preferred comfortable lies, between those who stood firm under pressure and those who compromised, between those who sought the authentic and those who settled for the counterfeit. As we approach what these prophecies describe as the final hour, the pace accelerates. Things that once took generations now happen in years. Changes that seemed impossible become reality overnight. The old world is collapsing faster than anyone expected, making room for whatever comes next. But here's the message they truly don't want you to hear. You don't have to be afraid. Fear is a tool of control. The prophecy isn't meant to terrify. It's meant to prepare, to warn, to give you a choice while choice is still possible. The same texts that predict tribulation also promise protection for those who seek it. Not necessarily physical protection from every hardship, but spiritual preservation. A way through the chaos that leads to something better on the other side. The question isn't whether these events will unfold. According to the prophecy, they're inevitable. The question is whether you'll recognize them when they happen. Whether you'll have the discernment to distinguish truth from deception when both are presented with equal confidence. Everything is converging. Ancient prophecies aligning with current events. Suppressed texts being validated by archaeology. Astronomical signs appearing on schedule. Technology enabling scenarios that seemed impossible just decades ago. The pieces are falling into place, exactly as written thousands of years ago. What they don't want you to know is that you're living in the most significant period in human history, the culmination of everything that came before, the transition point between ages, the final chapter before a new book begins. The prophecy has been hidden, fragmented, suppressed, but never destroyed, because truth has a way of surviving, of resurfacing exactly when it's needed most. And if you're hearing this now, perhaps it's not by accident. Perhaps you're meant to know. Perhaps your choice matters more than you realize. The end times aren't something distant. They're not a fictional scenario or religious fantasy. According to these ancient suppressed prophecies, they're here, now, unfolding around us. The only question is whether you have eyes to see it.